Hello everyone, thank you for joining our today's webinar. We are about to start in a few minutes. Okay, so while we're waiting for more attendees to come, please guys introduce yourself, especially if you are attending this webinar for the first time. Let me know which country are you from and what's your feeder, chess.com or just any national ELO. Okay, welcome again to my webinar 85, calculation and decision making in chess. On this webinar we are going to analyze three different games fragments where I'll try to explain the logic behind the moves played by grandmasters and how they decide to calculate these exact moves candidates. And actually what to be looking for. Okay, before we start, just a quick question for you. When you decide which move to play, how many moves calculation, before you decide which move to play, how many moves candidates do you usually calculate? Two or three maximum. Okay, Forky, thank you. Who else wants to share? Two. Okay, I see. Okay, four. Okay, while I'm waiting for more answers, I can definitely say that at least you should calculate three different moves candidates. Of course, it depends on the position, but every time try to find at least three. However, if you always, just a sec. Okay, so if you choose a lot of moves candidates, sometimes you won't have enough time to calculate them all properly, and then you get into time trouble and start making mistakes. So that's why because of your positional understanding, you should choose about three, sometimes two, but three is more common. You should choose three moves candidates that you can calculate during a certain period of time. If you choose, for example, 5 to 8, of course, in such a case, you are unlikely to miss something, but at the same time, it's too time consuming. That's the problem. So that's why if you improve your ability to understand the position properly, you'll be quite sure what exactly to analyze does this move deserve our attention or not, and then you just come up with a few alternatives. Yeah, we can call it intuition, but I'd better say that it's not intuition but more practice and your chess experience. As for intuition, sometimes you may trust to your intuition, but I believe maybe in only 60% of all cases. So actually the number is not so high. Okay. Just before we start the webinar, let me show you something. So first, this is my profile on chess.com. You can send me a friend request. So so this is the link, so you can send me a friend request. What else? My YouTube channel. This is the link, and I'm also streaming this webinar on YouTube. The recording will be available for a few days more. So then my website, tricksofchess@teachable.com. So this is the link. What you can find there, for example, my online courses. If you click here, you can find online courses, a lot of some of them were devoted to the end games, some to openings, tactics, of course, and there is also the one about middle game strategies. It's called How to Make a Game Plan. It helps especially for those who struggle with it. For example, if you develop your pieces, make the first 10-12 moves, and then you don't know what to do, then you can definitely learn what grandmasters play in typical positions and try to implement it in your games. So this is what I explain in my course. As for coaching, as for private coaching, you can message me on tricksofchess@gmail.com. And here you can get training programs for 3 months, 6 months. It's a kind of a guide where I analyze your games first and then tell you what you should work on, which tactics to solve, or which games to analyze, what to watch and what to read to be able to improve your openings or middle game, for example. Okay, let's close it, and that's it for today. Let's continue with our webinar. Okay, here we are. Okay, that was a good question. Do you have any reading material books to recommend on improving calculation besides, of course, no, it's difficult to suggest any books because there are no, I didn't read any books that are devoted to calculations only. I read a lot of books where calculation is mentioned, and authors there describe what should be found there. What should be the procedure, so how you build a tree, the tree of variations, where you have several lines to analyze. You first finish the first line, then you come to the second line, analyze it fully, then the third one, and only then you choose which line to play. just one more thing, maybe it will be helpful for you. Okay, so this guy Erland Mikkelsen, who is international master, created a calculation masterclass that I watched myself, and this is the one that I recommend. If you are looking for some extra material that can help you in calculation, you can purchase this course. And of course, the coupon code Victor60 gives you a 60% discount. So for example, you do like that, then you apply coupon code Victor60, and the price should be reduced. Yeah, it's only 51.60. Okay. Okay, let me close it. So if you are talking about the book that, if you're asking me about the book that I've read, so there were two Russian books. First one is written by Soviet Grandmaster Viktor Golenishev. I'll type his name here. Viktor Golenishev. So you can find, I'm not sure if this book is translated into English, but it's definitely in Russian, and so calculation is well explained there. The second book, and actually the book that, no, I'm sure, I think it's not, but I'm not sure. So the second book that I read, it's the book from Grandmaster Konstantin Sakaev. But it's also a Russian book, and I'm not sure if it's translated. It definitely should be translated into several languages because it's a really good and helpful material. But right now it's not. So right now the best way to practice is just to watch the webinars and repeat the procedure every game, every moment when you have several options to play. Okay, let's start. Today we are going to observe three different games. So this is the first one. This is the game played by two Soviet grandmasters, Gennady Kuzmin and Evgeny Sveshnikov. Gennady Kuzmin is actually Ukrainian grandmaster, Sveshnikov is Russian, but when they played, they were both Soviet people. Okay, sorry. So not everything works properly in Twitch. Sorry for that. However, let's start analyzing. What can you say about this position? It's white to move. What white should do? Oh, bishop h7. It's definitely a good option that we should analyze. True. Okay, now let's start. So, for example, bishop h7, king h7, queen h5. king goes to g8. Then if we decide just to play rook f3, which of course makes sense, our opponent is likely to react with f5. No, not f5, but knight f4. Knight f4, attacking our queen, and if we move the queen back to g4, he just plays knight g6, and it looks like black found a way how successfully defend the position. So first of all, before making the moves in this position, you should understand it. Let's describe what you understand about this position. First of all, I can say that white is down a pawn. Second thing that comes to our mind is that black king side is not protected enough, while black pieces are struggling at the moment. They don't have enough space. Maybe we can succeed with a direct attack by playing either a queen h5 or bishop h7. However, if you sacrifice anything, it should be well calculated. So bishop h7 is definitely one of the moves candidates. What about other moves? I think we should calculate bishop e5. Why bishop e5? Because the pawn on e4 is hanging, and this move looks good. It protects the pawn, it gains the temper, and for example, if after bishop e5 they play d6, we can... Oh, actually, maybe you will tell me what we can do after this move. So d6 is not a good option. He is likely to play queen d8 in this position. After which we are better, and we may continue with maybe rook f3. Rook f3, rook h3, and so on. But every time we play rook f3, they play f5. Rook h3 with a strong attack, but it looks like we don't have enough resources, and black successfully joined their pieces to the defense. So what do we have? White has a compensation for the pawn that was sacrificed before. Their attack might be strong, but currently the f4 pawn is hanging, and we should analyze if we should first defend it or we should start the attack immediately. As for your bishop h7 move, king h7, queen h5, king g8, then how to continue? If, for example, you do rook f3, as I mentioned first, then knight f4, and the queen is under attack. Queen retreats, but then knight g6, and black is fine. What do you think in this position white can play? Double bishop sacrifice. Yes, bishop g7. That makes sense. So bishop g7, king g7. Let's say queen g4. Why queen g4? Because this is how we can cut the enemy king off. They go to h8 or h7. I don't think there is a big difference, because if they go to f6, it's a checkmate in one. So they go to h8. And if now we decide to play rook f3, what do you think black can do to defend their position? Knight f6. Yeah, they have knight f4, of course. Knight f4, not knight f6, because knight f6 is a blunder. If knight f6 is played, then rook h3, knight h7, and after queen h5 there is no defense. So knight f4, they sacrifice. Of course, we don't trade the queens, we have to take with the rook, but then f5. For example, queen h5, king g7. And if now white plays rook f3, what do you think black can play to be able to defend their position? What do you think? 4k, yes, you are absolutely correct. It's just a rook h6. King f6 is not as good as rook h8. Rook h8 I meant. What's the idea? No, it's just trapping the queen. Yeah, h2 is a threat, but we are actually trapping the queen, and the queen has no squares to escape. The only thing they can do is to deliver a check, but in such a case, just queen takes g3. Queen takes h8, king takes h8, and then white is a minor piece down. All that you should calculate properly and realize that every time you initiate your rook attack with rook f3, they can always play knight f4 and defend pieces successfully. So the other thing we can analyze is queen h5. What do you think can happen in case if we play queen h5? f5 here. Yeah, here Marcel is correct. f5. g6, h6 is too slow, but f5 stops the attack. Looks like queen h5 is not the option. So we did analyze this move, and came up to the solution that right now they both don't work. Why? Oh, because of knight f4. What else should we analyze? Bishop e5 as a positional move. Bishop e5, and if they play d6, what can you say about bishop h7 at this moment? What do you think? Okay, so as for bishop h7, at this moment it may succeed because this is how we blocked the connection between the queen and the f4 square. So bishop h7, king h7, queen h5, king g8, and then bishop g7. They take, check, he goes there, and then rook f3. Oh, actually, let's say not king h8, but king h7, and then rook f3. There is no big difference. Then they have to play queen knight takes f4, sacrificing we take. They play f5, check, king goes there, and rook f3. Here we definitely have a compensation. For example, what they can play in this position? Let's say rook h8 doesn't work because after rook h8 just rook g3 and the king has to move and leave the rook unprotected. Let's say d5, then we play rook g3 and they have to sacrifice the queen. Why? Because of these. Then rook g6, king f7, rook h6, and then queen g6 is mate. So king e5, queen e2. If they go there, it's a checkmate in one. If they go there, it's the other checkmate, it's rook d1. Okay, what do we have now? Looks like if we play bishop e5 and they react with d6, our sacrifice on h7, I mean double bishop sacrifice, works. But what if they play just an ordinary move, queen d8? Then bishop h7, king h7, this line doesn't work. So queen g4 first. And yeah, if they play this move, then maybe rook f3 is good. But now bishop g5, they sacrifice the bishop back. We take queen e7, and I'm not sure that in this position we can succeed with our kingside attack. So what do we have? We may play bishop e5, which looks like a good move, and if they play d6 we win, but if they play queen d8, then our bishop h7 sacrifice doesn't work, and after queen d8 we have to play something ordinary, like rook f3 for example, with rook h3 idea. So no concrete solution. So you see, every time we decide to initiate a kingside attack with double bishop sacrifice, the knight on d5 is a problem. That's why we may consider what we should do first to be able to prepare this kind of attack. And then you come up to the solution that the next move should be knight b6, which distracts the knight or gains the material. This is what actually was mentioned by Chess Gamer 49. Yeah, exactly. Knight b6. What do they have to play at the moment? If, for example, they play rook a7, then we take on d5 and sacrifice the bishop on h7. Now, nothing can help. We can apply the same idea. But first, let's look at the knight b6 move. So bishop h7, king takes h7, queen h5, king g8, bishop g7, king g7, queen g4, king goes there, or h8, doesn't really matter. And then after rook f3 there is no defense. The best thing they can do is maybe this, and after rook h3 block here, and after rook h4 sacrifice. Which of course is not so good. I mean, it's definitely winning position for white. So let's sum it up. When you come to the position when you need to analyze several options and come up with the best move, you should analyze positional factors, of course. This is what I call understanding the position. So here white is down a pawn, but white may initiate a strong kingside attack, especially with two bishop sacrifice, because there are no enemy pieces covering it. However, this line should be well calculated, so bishop h7 is definitely the move that we should calculate. At the same time, together with attacking moves, you should calculate some positional moves, such as bishop e5, which protects the pawn and improves your position in general, and still allows you to succeed after d6, but doesn't after queen d8. And then when you come up to the solution that bishop h7 or another kind of attack doesn't work because of the knight in the center, then you should ask yourself if instead of doing an attacking move you can play a kind of a prophylaxis to prepare your attack and, for example, get rid of the knight in the center by playing knight b6. Then you calculate these options. So actually we don't analyze something weird like what? Queen d2, queen f3, queen g4, or queen g4, just anything including bishop f6 can be played. We just calculate the lines that improves our position in general. This is the game between two grandmasters, Gennady Kuzmin and Evgeny Sveshnikov. Actually, Sveshnikov is one of the top players. Was one of the top players when he was younger. Now he is quite old, but he still participates in the tournaments. And if you remember, one of the lines in Sicilian is called Sveshnikov variation. In Russia, we call it Chelyabinsk variation, but most people in the West call it Sveshnikov variation. What move? Knight b6 was played, so they were correct. Knight takes b6, then bishop h7, and the game is winning. There is a good question. How far should you calculate in your games? You should calculate until you see forcing moves. If you start the attack with bishop h7, of course you should calculate until the checks are over and you believe either you checkmate or gain the material back, or the king gets to a safe place and you are unable to reach it anymore. This is where you should stop. And one more important thing, every time you calculate a certain line, you should give your evaluation of that position. So for example, bishop e5, two lines, d6 and queen d8. If bishop d6, white wins. If queen d8, for example, rook f3, f5, rook h3, bishop f6, white has a kind of an attack, but I'm not sure if this activity compensates the pawn. So I believe the position is approximately equal. After bishop h7, black wins if they play properly. After knight b6, then you realize that white wins, and you should prefer this move because there black either sacrifice the rook or later has to sacrifice the queen on h4. Okay, the next game we are going to talk about is the game played between Vishy Anand and Joel Latier, a French grandmaster. Okay, in this game, black played a rook d8. Now I want you to evaluate the position, tell me what you think, and suggest moves candidates. By the way, guys, I want you to have in mind that I'm reading all the comments. If I didn't mention something and you believe I missed it, I missed it only because of the educational purposes, because I want to explain it a little bit later when we come to it. I read comments on Twitch and YouTube as well. So what can you say about the position? Any ideas of what should be done? Okay. Yeah, white is one pawn down, that's true. King is under the attack. I can't say exactly that the king is under the attack because actually here white has all pieces supporting it, including this pawn cover, and black doesn't really have enough material to succeed. This is the main thing. The rook is pinned. However, you can also look at the bishop on g2 and realize that they can't escape. The bishop is stuck. That's right. how got the bishop got there? Probably, I believe it was through this diagonal, and then f3 was played to trap it. Okay, so there is a good idea that Arjun suggested here. Rook takes c6, f takes c6, and bishop g6. But wait a sec. Rook takes c6 is illegal because of the pin. Okay, there is one more idea by Yasser. It's bishop g6 immediately. But bishop g6 sacrifices the queen, so this move should be well calculated. And you should be sure that you get enough material compensation or checkmate. Okay, rook f7 is queen e1. Okay, what moves candidates? Bishop g6, rook f7, queen e1. Now I see 3. Any other suggestions? King takes g2. Okay, king takes g2. So, okay, now we have 4 moves. Let's stop for a while. First of all, I want you to understand that, yes, the bishop is stuck and is gonna be trapped anyway. However, for that bishop, black takes on e3, and this is how they get 2 minor pieces for a rook. They can also take the pawn on f3, so it will be 2 minor pieces. I mean, there will be a rook for 2 minor pieces and the pawn. Two pawns, finally. However, with 2 bishops, white is satisfied with this trade. But if only black sacrifices the bishop for more pawns, then I'm not sure if white should allow that. I believe black would have the advantage in such a case. The king will be too exposed. So we are okay to let them take these 2 pieces, but sacrifice bishop and knight on d5. What exactly can we do to be able to capture the bishop? We can start with something forced, like for example rook f7, like you said. But if rook f7, king f7, bishop g6, queen takes queen, after that white is winning. It's true, but actually after rook f7, which is not a check, it's not obligatory for black to capture on f7 with their king. What they can do instead? So rook f7, what black can play to avoid the queen loss? No ideas? Rook g8? Come on. Rook g8 is just a tempo loss. Nobody suggests anything. Knight c3, of course, guys. Rook f7 is a kind of a tempo move that forces some certain reaction from black. Knight to c3 attacking the queen, but the main point of this move is to protect the queen. White queen moves, and then black can capture on f7, and that's it. The other thing you may say is bishop g6, but the problem of bishop g6 is that there is no checkmate. Queen takes d1, No, okay, I'll show you. This is what you should calculate, and I can calculate, but sometimes for you it may be difficult to picture the position in your mind. That's why I'm going to show. Bishop g6, queen d1. In this position we have two options. To capture on f7 with the bishop, or to take on e6 with our rook. Let's say bishop f7, king goes there, bishop a3, then c5, for example, bishop c5, knight blocks on e7. Why did I play such a move? It's because I want to attack the rook on b7 after I take on f3 with my queen, for example. So what then? Bishop takes e7, king takes f7 is the only move. They take there, but king g8. And if this move, I can just play queen d2 or capture on d8. There is not enough compensation for the queen. The other line here is rook takes e6. Rook takes e6, king f8, bishop a3, c5 can be played, but not required. So knight e7, bishop e7, king g8, rook d8, and then after queen f3, f takes e6, and the game is over. Black is completely winning. So bishop g6 right now doesn't work because there are not enough resources for a white to deliver a checkmate. If only something can be played to improve. Okay, as for such moves like bishop b2 and bishop a3, no guys, I'm not sure if you should calculate them, because in such case just queen e3 or even knight e3 with the intention of knight d1. So all these moves are blunders. As for king g2, I also think this is a blunder because of knight e3, fork, bishop takes, queen takes, and what then? White is down the exchange with no perspective with their kingside attack. You may consider queen e1, the move that we also mentioned. But if only we play queen e1, black sacrifices the bishop for a pawn, king has to take, then they play queen f4 check, king moves either g2 or e2, but in both cases, black first takes on a3 and then takes the pawn on g4 with a check. For example, this move, take, take, check, and two pawns were sacrificed. So, for example, king moves, queen h5, and in this position, two bishops are not enough to compensate rook plus 4 pawns even. Let's play, for example, queen g1. What's the difference? Queen g1 covers the pawn on g4. If now bishop f3, king takes f3, queen f4, king e2, knight e3, bishop e3, this position looks fine for white. And then let's say bishop, queen moves, rook takes a7. Here, white is much better. Okay, so after rook d8, we calculated this move, this move, this move, and queen g1 move. These are the most logical options that require our calculation. Then we come up to the solution that rook f7 is a complete blunder. Bishop g6 could make sense if we have more pieces to support our position. Queen e1 doesn't work because they sacrifice the bishop for too many pawns. Queen g1 looks good and provides us with a better position, and for example, if you don't have enough time on your clock, you can just play queen g1 and that's it. But then you can realize that actually the bishop is trapped anyway. Can we play a move that improves our position and doesn't make anything bad? What do you think? What kind of move it can be? No, here I've got only the comment from Marcel. Okay, who else wants to share their opinion? Queen e2. I don't think there is a big difference between queen e2 or queen e1, because even knight e4 can be played with a tempo. No, with queen e2 you're not threatening with anything. I can just castle. And what? Bishop e2 is a blunder. Sorry. Oh, bishop e2, queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, knight takes e3, bishop takes 3, and then you realize that actually the bishop on d1 is hanging now while the file is open. Okay, in this position, Marcel suggested h6 move. This move doesn't do anything bad, but improves white position a lot. Actually, this is what was played in the game, and such a strong, such a top player as Vishy Anand was able to find it. What does this move do? After this move, this move supports the attack, and after this move it's not easy to come up to this to the black move. What they can do, they can take, they can push. What else? Maybe knight e3 works. For example, knight e3, bishop e3, queen e5, h takes g7, and if now the queen takes, king g2 is enough. If rook g8, then I think queen c1 looks good. It gives us two options to play this move, to play this move as well. So for example, if queen h2, then bishop f4 looks good. Queen h3, then it's up to you. Either of these. No, not this. Queen h3, then just bishop e4 attacking here. And queen e3 on the next move. Sorry. So once again, h6. If knight e3, we decided that white is much better because the bishop is stuck there. What if, for example, g6? What do you think? Why g6 is in the white favor? Okay, guys, Abraham, sorry, rook e4 cannot be played. It's a pin. What do you think may work in this position? Okay, so here h6 pawn supports our attack, and then bishop g6 works. Bishop g6, queen takes queen, rook takes e6, check, king f8, rook f7, check, king g8, rook g7, king f8, and finally we play rook a3, bishop a3 move. They block with their knight, and rook f6 is a checkmate. I'm going to show on the board. Queen takes queen, check. He goes there, rook f7, king g8, rook g7, king f8, bishop a3. He can block with c5, or just block on, oh, it's a temporary defense as well as this move, then we checkmate immediately. Knight e7, just rook f6 mate. So g6 cannot be played because of bishop g6, because now h6 pawn supports the g7 square, and we can locate the rook there to be able to continue the attack. G5 does the same thing as g6. Bishop g6 still can be played. What if g takes h6? This move was actually played on the board in the game. What do you think we should continue? Bishop g6. Exactly. Still bishop g6 works. Why? Because now our bishop comes not from that side but from this side. Bishop g6, queen d1, rook e6, king f8, and bishop h6. King g8, bishop f7 mate. If instead of queen d1 they play, for example, this move, then still bishop f7, king f8, and queen takes queen, bishop e3, the rook is under attack, bishop h6 is the threat, then the bishop is hanging. So it's absolutely winning position for white. In the game, instead of taking on d1, they played knight e7. How would you continue, and what do you think Vishy Anand did? Rook e7, rook e7, king e7, and what then? No, I don't think rook e7 works. Okay, in this position you can actually play anything you want. Like queen takes d4, rook takes d4, and let's just save our pieces. The bishop is trapped anyway, don't worry. Rook d3, offering a trade. Rook d8, rook takes rook, king takes, bishop retreats to be able to trap these. If if bishop h3, then king g3 traps. If king h1, then I'll show you. So for example, bishop h1, bishop b2, attacking the rook. Rook has to go there, then bishop f6 pins, and then we just come and take the pawn on c6 or gain the knight on e7. And of course you understand that after bishop e4 you can play king g1 as well to trap the bishop, and this is how you get an extra piece. Oh, quite nice combination. So rook d8, and then we realize that maybe we can take the advantage of our queen standing on the same file, in case if we try to open the file with a temper like bishop g6. But then we calculate that bishop g6 doesn't work. In such a case, we have several positional moves like queen e1 and queen g1. Queen e1 is unlikely to succeed because we blunder at least 2 pawns, maybe even 3, for that bishop that is already stuck there. But queen g1 works because in such a case we protect on g4. So if not h6, then queen g1 should be a good move. So how to come up to this solution? First of all, you should realize that nothing bad gonna happen with your position even if they take, because if they take, their queen will be under the attack, and then you could successfully capture with the king on g2. The second thing is that you are threatening with bishop g6. What to do, how to prepare this bishop g6 combination? You can just play h6, and this is what Vishy did. He calculated the line, realized that he needs one more attacker, and decided the pawn to be that attacker. Or you can just play queen g1 and then just play a better position, especially that could make sense in case if you can't calculate the line quite deep and properly. Then just queen g1 looks good. Rook e6 doesn't work, it's illegal. This is what I mentioned before. Fine. I hope it's clear. The next example, the last one, is about this position. The game played between English Grandmaster John Nunn and Dutch Grandmaster Paul van der Sterren. It was knight e4 played on the board, and I want you to evaluate the position. First of all, you should compare the material which is equal, and then you should take into account other positional factors. So here I want you to think and evaluate and come up with several moves candidates, and then we'll discuss which of them is better. Bishop h6 at this exact position. Bishop h6, king takes g6. Bishop h6, g takes h6. So what's the idea actually? Oh, queen g4 check after that. Okay. Bishop h6, g takes h6, queen g4 check, queen g5, for example. So everyone who came right now, we are talking about calculations and decision-making process in Grandmasters games. So if you are watching this webinar on YouTube, I kindly recommend you to join Twitch. This is the link. But I will be still streaming this webinar on YouTube as well. Okay, queen g4 is one of the moves candidates that definitely deserves our attention. What about knight takes e4? Okay, so I don't have any suggestions from you guys. That's why I'm going to show myself. So queen g4 is definitely the move that we should calculate, but I don't know. Okay, you want to succeed with the kingside attack. That might work, but don't neglect other positional factors. I'm not sure that in this position white have enough pieces to succeed with the kingside attack. Yeah, the bishop is looking on at h7. The other bishop can join, the queen can join, but do we have enough pieces to succeed? Not at this exact moment, maybe later. Okay, first of all, you should calculate the direct move knight takes e4. Knight takes a4, d takes a4, bishop takes a4, bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop. What can you say about that position? Did we gain a pawn? Or I'm missing something and black can play better? I mean, or black can play something after that to be able to get the compensation or the pawn back. Okay. Queen d5 and rook a d8. That makes sense, but there is even a better move. So first knight a4. Knight a4, d takes a4, bishop a4, bishop takes bishop. Then queen d5 looks good in this position, but queen d5, queen e2 is fine. Then knight retreats to f3 and the position looks good. Or then maybe if rook d8, then bishop b2 just to protect here. Queen d5 offers better chances for white, but such move like knight c6 equalizes the position. Why? This is how they attack here. The knight is pinned. Well, this is what I want you to understand. And something like f4 in this position is of course a blunder. Well, queen d5 works, but the most simple thing is just to take. If queen takes, then queen will take one more time and play bishop c5. If rook takes on d4 immediately, then bishop c5 immediately. And black position is better. What else can be done? For example, bishop b2 with kind of indirect protection. Then just rook e5, and knight c6 is not a good move. Queen d1, rook e4, and black is winning. And queen e2 is not possible because of the knight being hanging. So actually, guys, the first thing that should come to your mind here is that while the knight is on the edge on the board and can't join the game immediately, white is positionally better. The e5 pawn here offers a kind of a kingside attack for white, but at the same time there are no concrete threats and we can say that white is much better, just slightly better. So our task is not to allow the knight to retreat back to c6. In such a case we would have a positional advantage, but at the same time it doesn't mean that you should do only the moves that prevent knight from moving to c6. You should play logical moves that improves your positional, and you may allow your opponent to get his knight back to c6 if after they spend the tempo on it you have something good for your position. So knight e4, queen g4 is the other move that is actually possible, but in such a case they play knight c6 immediately. Knight takes knight, bishop takes. We may take on e4 and get an extra pawn, but after rook c8 looks like black got rid of their bad pieces. However, white is still a pawn up, and I believe this position is in white favor, and this is one of the logical moves that can be played. After queen g4, what else can we analyze? Maybe something like that? I don't think so, because after this move the e4 knight is gone, and now we have a strong attack with these, and these options. This is where white definitely have enough resources to succeed with the kingside attack. I'm not sure about the checkmate, but there should be something to gain the material. Okay, now let's go back. So knight takes e4, queen g4 are two moves candidates. What else? What else to consider? The other thing that I would calculate is something logical that improves our position generally. For example, we are not gaining the pawn on e4 because of knight c6 later in the line, and they take the advantage of this pin. Oh, let me show you the line again here. So because of this pin, I can't do anything. I can't gain the pawn, and I have to lose the pawn on e5. That's why I can play a kind of a prophylaxis, which is bishop b2, to connect the queen and the rook, and at the same time I join the bishop to the attack. Of course, the pawn on e5 wasn't hanging because at least of f3, which takes the advantage of the pin. So I didn't really need to protect the e5 pawn with my bishop, but of course I kept it in mind as well. What now? Let's say rook c8. If rook c8, we just take on e4 and gain a pawn. They play knight c6, but it only simplifies the position and gives us better chances to succeed. In the game, black played queen b8, which I think is not the best move. Maybe they could play something better, but in such a case, they would have to play without a pawn. And something like that is not a good idea because it opens the attack for us. So with bishop b2 we join all the pieces, queen b8 was played, and in this position maybe knight f5 looks good, maybe we can just take on e4. However, queen g4 is not a good option at this moment. This is the other move that we should calculate because they capture and now our knight is pinned. That's the problem. For example, knight df5, queen b2, knight h6, and the best thing we have here is a perpetual check. Like that. King g8. Oh, of course, they can't play such a move. We just continue with knight f7. There is also knight f7, for example, and if they take on c2, rook takes e4. No, let's say rook takes e4, knight g5, and then we take there, and this is a draw anyway. So queen g4 only offers a draw. And white player, John Nunn, decided to play e6 in this position with the intention to open the bishop. That was one of his intentions. The other one was to create a backward pawn on e6 and pass the game to the endgame and attack it successfully. And this is what could happen in case if f takes e6. Knight e4, d takes e4, bishop takes e4. The pawn is a weakness. We may continue with maybe these moves. They have to protect. e5 is unlikely to work because then after knight f3 they have no pieces to defend. King f7 is something weird. Queen d6 or queen b6. Just queen g4 to reinforce the pressure. That's why in this position, instead of playing, instead of capturing the pawn, they played queen f4, which I believe is not a good choice. What do you think white should do in this position? What's your opinion? E takes f7, e takes f7, king takes f7. Then what? Okay, maybe it's too difficult to find, but f3 I think is the best option. Now, if they take, we can play knight f5 with a tempo. For example, queen g3, knight f5, and e7 on the next move. If the queen retreats somewhere, let's say there, then probably rook c1, and we continue our strong attack, and then maybe queen d3 or something like that. If after f3 they retreat to f6, then definitely we may take, king takes, and queen d3 with queen g6 on the next move, and the strong attack after that. So here you may realize that these two pieces are not playing in this game, while we can continue with this move and then one of the knights to f5. What did John Nunn play? He played knight takes e4. D takes e4, it was not the best option. g3. Queen f6 could offer some practical chances for a draw, but they played queen e5. Queen g4. Oh, with the intention of knight f5. Knight h6, knight f7, and oh, okay, I'll show you. For example, which move to play? Let's say knight c6. Then e takes f7, king takes f7, and after bishop e4, white is winning. Okay, in the game it was played h5 to gain a tempo. Queen retreats to e2. h5 was actually a good move. The queen on g4 was quite annoying. What then? F takes e6, bishop takes e4. The bishop e4 contains several threats. That's why they decided to trade the material. Now the pawn on e6 becomes a weakness, and king f7 doesn't work because of this move. e5, just knight f3, the pawn is attacked several times. So the black has to sacrifice the pawn, but to get the initiative, and that's why they developed their rook to the c file. Bishop b4, rook e2, bishop c3, trading bishops, and after rook e6 the game is almost over. White passes the game into the endgame with extra pawn. a6 is a weakness, and of course here white piece's activity is enough to win the game. So what can we say about this position? Again, let's sum it up. We definitely should calculate direct moves like knight e4 and maybe queen g4. We should notice that the knight on the edge of the board is not participating in the game, and we may gain the pawn on e4 if only we somehow protect the queen. That's why we may consider bishop b2 move that does a lot of benefits. What are these benefits? For example, this is how we protect the queen with our rook. Second, we are about to join the bishop to the attack. And the third, that was actually applied in the game, the idea of e6 that opens the bishop and at the same time creates a backward pawn on e6 that may be attacked after that. And this is how white would gain the pawn on e4 but sacrifice their pawn to be able to gain the pawn on e6 and pass the game into the endgame with an extra pawn. So let's sum it up once again about what you need to calculate. You don't have to calculate a lot of moves candidates. Try to analyze only the most logical ones, and how to realize if this is a logical move and this is not. You should get more experience and practice to be able to understand it. So here bishop b2 did a lot, and that's why we chose it. Queen g4 was another possible move with the intention to either succeed with our kingside attack or gain the pawn on e4. that move could work as well. But don't forget to look at the position and evaluate it first. Here, while the knight is on a5, black pieces are stuck there, and white has a positional advantage. Okay, do you have any questions about calculations, just anything? And of course, I kindly recommend you to subscribe to my Twitch channel. This is the link. Then my YouTube channel as well. This is my YouTube channel. This is my profile. And guys, in the very beginning, you were asking me about. Okay, just a sec. In the very beginning, you were asking me about the course devoted to calculations by Erland Mikkelsen. No, I really enjoyed watching this course. So this is the link for you. I can share it on YouTube and on Twitch as well. Don't forget to use my coupon code, which is Victor60. This coupon code allows to save 60%. So there will be a 60% discount. Any questions, any ideas? Oh, actually, I was watching this course when I was already a FIDE master. So this course didn't help me a lot when I was at this level. As for the books, I read them when I was younger, and so first Golenishev book, Golenishev's book helped me when I was younger. It really gave me an understanding of what I should do and how should I calculate. But nowadays, if I were at that level, I would prefer watching the course with a clearer explanation rather than reading books and trying to imagine everything on the board or just moving the pieces on the board. So now I would choose the course. At that time, when I was younger, there were only books, coaches, and some self-study. How far do I calculate? It depends on the position. I calculate until there are no forcing moves anymore. Usually, when there are no any tactics in the position, I calculate in 3-4 moves, and then I try to evaluate the position properly. So then I compare several lines and choose the position I prefer more. But if only there is something forcing, I calculate as deep as I can. Usually it's 6 to 8 moves, but it can be up to 20 moves. Okay, another good question: what can you do to improve in calculation? I know puzzles help a lot. If, for example, you don't want to read or watch anything, just do puzzles, tons of them. However, the best thing to improve in calculation is to do puzzles in your mind. Don't make the moves on the board. Try to calculate everything in your mind, and only after you are sure that this is the answer, you can make the move on the board. Doesn't really matter if you are solving puzzles online or if you are doing them on a physical board. Don't touch the pieces until you are sure that this exact is the solution. Okay, any other questions? Okay, as for the chess rules, patterns and calculations. Just a sec. Okay, guys, you're probably talking about this course as well. It's patterns and calculations with International Master David Fitzsimons. Yes, this course is good as well. I was talking to David when he was working on it. We were discussing what to include into this course, but unfortunately I didn't have enough time to watch it. I just watched a few lectures. What can I say? The course is really good and allows you to recognize patterns to be able to find moves candidates and calculate. Which would I prefer? I think I would prefer the first one by Erland Mikkelsen. But I can't say so. I just didn't watch the full course of David Fitzsimons. So anyway, this is the link for that course. And my coupon code should work for them both. How does calculation works by Blitz? Okay, in Blitz you don't have enough time to calculate. You should calculate only things that you are able to calculate in a short period of time. How do I play Blitz? I play mainly by intuition. And if only I believe there is a kind of tactics that's gonna happen, then I make a pause and calculate. And of course, it's quite important not to waste your time, but to calculate while your opponent is thinking about his next move. I always predict what my opponent gonna do, and this is what you should do. Even if you are mistaken, just predict anything that you expect from your opponent. In my case, I am correct in 80% of all the cases. Sometimes I'm mistaken and my opponent plays something else, but even in such a case, it's only 20%. And okay, let's say in 20% of all the cases, I have to spend time and calculate my next move. But in 80%, I'm already prepared for the next move by my opponent. And of course, this number depends on the concrete position. For example, there are positions when my opponent can play any move. There are a lot of options. And in such a case, of course, you are unlikely to predict and to make sure that this is the next move. In such a case, you have to think on your time. But try to think Try to think on your opponent's time. This is the best strategy in Blitz. Actually, I was thinking about doing a course devoted to the secrets of Blitz, which would contain practical tips of how to play Blitz properly. This is, I'm sure I'll do it, but later. Okay, as for that course is from the chess world. Yeah, the question is if it's DVDs or they are online on website. You can download from there, or you can watch on the site. Up to you. Okay, if no questions, then let's finish for today. Hope to see you on my next webinar. That will be next Sunday. I think that probably we'd better play a simul next week. Just let me know what you think about it. And again, if you have any questions, suggestions, don't hesitate to message me on tricksofchess@gmail.com. Also, if you have any friends that would like to get benefits from learning from my webinars, you can also invite them to come, especially to my Twitch account. Okay, thank you, and see you next Sunday.